Hey there. Welcome to a new series of videos called Tactic Talks that'll be releasing the second and fourth Tuesday of every month going forward. In this series of videos, I will be joined by other guests who have several games already under their belt. This isn't going to be a meta gaming discussion where we always say, yes, bring Y because they're fantastic, but never bring X because they're an awful character, or anything like that. Rather, this is a video series that's going to be aimed at people who have played a few games and are looking for some extra tips or strategy ideas from players around the world who are playing this game and have different thoughts and strategies that they bring to the table. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Hello there, and welcome to the show that probably should have been a podcast, Tuesday's Tactic Talks. On today's episode, we are talking about Marvel Crisis Protocol, and we'll be taking a closer look at roster building. Joining me today, we have Will from the Deadpool-esque podcast, House Party Protocol.
What's up?
And Brian from the YouTube channel, Mini Fights.
Hey there.
Thank you guys for joining me for my initial show of tactics about Marvel Crisis Protocol with other people. I'm excited, guys.
Me too. This is awesome. I've been wanting to do this for a while. We've been trying to get this going for like 2 weeks now.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for the invite. It's really awesome.
Yeah, guys, absolutely. Marvel is all about the crossovers anyway, so love that we're able to get other people joining forces for some fun content, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
So to kick things off, something I want to do in these shows is go over if you, in this hypothetical situation, if you were going to go to an event tomorrow, what is the roster you would bring? What 10 characters? What are the crisis cards? What are the team tactic cards? And to start off, I'm going to go ahead and say what I would bring. For me, I am an Avengers fan at the moment, so Captain America, Captain Marvel, Black Panther along with Black Widow, Baron Zemo, Killmonger, and Venom. And then I have this kind of side team of Hulk, Red Skull, and MODOK that we'll talk about a little bit later. For tactic cards, I've been bringing Patch Up, Trip Up, Avengers Assemble, Usurp the Throne, Lethal Defender, Brace for Impact, and Sucker, along with Cosmic Invigoration. And the crisis cards for me have been Cosmic Cubes, the Spider Infected, Wakandan Herbs, and then for the secure ones, the Extremist Consoles, Gamma Waves, and Infinity Formula. All in all, I really like how the Avengers play. They're a little bit more defensive, and so all of my objectives, I've decided to be trying to score as many points as possible. I don't want the weird ones with like the Kree Power Core or the Skrull Infiltrator. There's just not as many points that you can score with those. So with this team up with some mobile characters and defensive abilities, as well as having characters like Captain Marvel be able to sit on that back line and hold some of those objectives while still getting to get attacks off is kind of where I'm going. Will, though, what if you were going to an event tomorrow, what would you bring?
So my roster is all about flexibility. And it starts with the Avengers, Captain America, Captain Marvel, and Black Widow. Next up is my Cabal people. We've got Red Skull, MODOK, and the one and only Baron Zemo. After that, I've got a little bit of Wakanda sprinkled in there. Black Panther, Shuri, and Okoye. My tactics cards are Second Wind, Lethal Protector, Wakanda Forever, and Cosmic Invigoration, as well as, and I start every roster with these three right now because of what's available, and it's Brace for Impact, Recalibration Matrix, and Patch Up. And lastly, a mission objective. My crisis cards are Mystic Wakandan Herbs, Fact or Fiction, Spider Infected Invade Manhattan, Alien Ship Crashes in Downtown, Gamma Wave Sweeps Across the Midwest, Deadly Meteors Mutate Civilians, and the Infinity Formula Goes Missing. So this roster, like I said at the beginning, is all about flexibility for me. I want to be able to have a chance no matter what I'm up against. And I know that you think, oh, 3 affiliations crammed into one roster, but I actually left a character out of that. Venom. So Venom was my 10th character. Sorry. He's my flex character. So my Avengers affiliation, I have 10 total points. Boom, flex in a Venom, throw in somebody else, maybe Okoye. Who knows? I've got 16, 17 points right there. I could throw in Shuri, 17 points, done. Cabal, that's 12 points. I could throw in a Venom, make that 16 points. I can throw in Shuri, and that's 15 points, right? So if we get a Gamma Wave in there, boom, good to go. Wakanda, also throw in Venom, throw in Captain America or Captain Marvel. I'm happy. Life is good. And I just like flexibility. So that's what this roster's all about.
Awesome, man. I like it. I hadn't seen somebody who's been able to try to splash three different affiliations. It is impressive, if nothing else.
Well,
Brian, what about you? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, I forgot to mention that I have Venom as my last roster spot. He's my flex spot, so I think that's what makes it work.
That's fair. And with Winter Soldier on the horizon, I'm sure he's going to make it that much more flexible for you.
Yeah, I like that, Will. I think there's sort of the game within the game of roster building and looking at your opponent's roster and trying to figure out what they're going to play. And I would look at that and not really know what you're going to play at all. Like I think you can look at some rosters and go, oh, okay, I think they're probably going to end up playing this as a list based on the tactics cards and the pool. But you're so evenly split that I think you really are just kind of, no one's going to try to like metagame what you're bringing to the table because they're not going to be able to figure it out, honestly.
Exactly. It's kind of the point a little bit is like I don't have a Hulk, so I feel like that you could look at that as a perceived disadvantage, but I feel like that not having Hulk could also be an advantage.
Yeah, I mean you're not projecting anything, so they can't counter you, which I think that's probably ultimately to your advantage as long as you've got kind of in the back of your mind a good plan for the various different missions that could shake out. Like I'm going to play X list to play in gamma shelters or whatever. Those
Exactly.
scenarios that end up really being sort of a polarized, like you need a list for, right?
Exactly. No, you got it, man. You nailed it.
Sweet. Brian, what are you bringing to the event that we hypothetically have tomorrow?
So I'm like the anti-Will, I guess. My deal is basically, although I have a lot of similar characters to both you guys, and I think that's just kind of the pool isn't that big yet, and a lot of the same tactical cards, but I went with, I'm stupid, so I want to have very binary options in my selection, and it's really easy at a tournament to kind of get frazzled and on the fly make bad decisions for list building. There's other games that are like Marvel, like Malifaux, for example. It's real easy to like pick a bad list and lose before the game starts. I don't want to do that. So what I did was, let me read you my characters and stuff first, I guess. I've got Captain America, Captain Marvel, Black Panther, Venom, Red Skull, Okoye, Iron Man, Crossbones, and Zemo. So kind of like Will's pool, it looks like I could play all three affiliations. But my tactics cards don't really let me, like, it's not really a Wakanda pool. I'm playing Cosmic Invigoration, Ricochet Blast, Avengers Assemble, Trip Up, Mission Objective, Advanced R&D, Patch Up, and Lethal Protector. So the plan, like I was saying, I'm dumb. So I want to have just basically two things that it's either going to be, path A or path B, and it's going to be a fairly easy decision for me. So to make that work, I kind of worked out the math in my head, and this is rough math, of what are the odds that I get the deck I want and the scenario I want out of that deck. And in this particular sort of tournament hypothetical, what I'm trying to do is force Wakandan herbs every game. It's hard to do that because you can only get the red card or the blue card you want about 50% of the time. You're only going to win the is it priority or initiative in Marvel? Priority, right?
Priority.
Yeah, so you're only going to win the priority about roughly half the time. It's essentially a coin flip at the beginning of the game. So then you get to pick the color deck. So you could take your red deck, and then now you've got a 2/3 chance of getting that Wakandan herbs that you're fishing for. You also have a chance that your opponent wins, but they decide to take the blue deck and giving you the red deck decision, and then you get herbs anyway. So I call that maybe about a 50-50 call. Maybe it's not quite there, but let's just pretend it's 50-50. So 50% of the time I'm playing an Avengers list. That is going to be Captain America, Venom, Black Panther, Okoye, and Iron Man. And if you look at the pool I took, there's like Avengers Assemble and Ricochet Blast and the Lethal Protector. So that's three cards I have to take with that list, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would probably take like Trip Up, Patch Up as the other two. Or no, I'm sorry, I take Mission Objective, Patch Up as the other two. So that list kind of writes itself for that scenario. Um, I think Black Panther is just the ultimate herb runner. Like he just
Preach.
does it super well, and he's really hard to kill.
Preach.
Yeah. So okay, so that's half my games, hopefully. And then the other half is basically the Cabal side of the pool, which is a Cabal list with Modoc, depending on the point values, right? And I didn't address that. That could be a 15-point game as well. So with 15 points for that Avengers list, I would just drop a Koye. But the Cabal side of that, for when I don't get to force the herbs mission, I play a Cabal with Modoc, which I think is probably one of the most strong attrition lists in the game at just killing stuff, which is a style that I like to play anyway. And then the remaining, basically, if I take out of the 10 tactic cards I chose, if I take out all the ones that are specific to either Avengers or Venom, it pretty much is just the remaining five is what I get to take. So it just writes itself. So basically, it's just kind of a binary. I have two lists I'm going to play out of this, and there's very little variance, and that's it. And then I have a plan for theoretically every scenario I hit without having to, have smoke pouring out of my ears before the game starts. Because I think it's really easy to run yourself in circles during the sort of selecting from your roster before a game starts, and especially in a tournament environment.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, events can be stressful, even for a game like this where it's a very casual game. The prize pools have thus far all been just participatory, but yeah, at the same time, just a lot of people have not gone to an event for anything like this. So keeping it option A, option B is a great way to go through it.
Yeah, I do like that. I think that sounds like a really awesome strategy, and it allows you to kind of play within what you're most comfortable with. And so I really like that a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a little easier to practice that kind of scenario too, where you're just like kind of practicing two pretty firm lists,
Yeah.
which is nice. But really, for me, I'm an old school War Machine or Hordes player from back in the day,
So you're
and it was a
min-maxing?
two list format. So I'm in a way I'm kind of forcing a two list format onto this game
Yeah.
because that's what my brain is good at, from that game. And in my meta we don't take this game like super duper seriously. Like we're not playing tournaments and things yet. But I kind of put myself in that mind of like I want to win a tournament. So at this step, how do I not lose at the roster selection and kind of go from there? And I try to just keep it simple like that. So we'd see how I have not played in a tournament yet, so I have not had a chance to test it. But one day maybe I will.
Yeah, that'll be good. We're coming up here in Memphis, and for anybody listening to this out there watching this, we're coming up for the tournament in about 4 weeks, our first tournament here in Memphis. So, yeah, come check us out.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. Well, I'm going to keep us on topic and keep moving here. So I do have some questions specifically about how we view the roster building process and some of the things with that. So my first question is, what are the three things that you keep in mind when building your roster, and why are these things the most important? And Brian, I'm going to go straight back to you, man.
Okay, cool. So yeah, like as I mentioned, one of those three things just needs to be some sort of plan, like the Black Panther Force Herbs. I think that's critical for me. Building a roster is have a hypothetical. This is the sort of there's at least a one crisis that I'm sort of aiming for with this particular pool of models, and then kind of work around that, just to keep it simple. And then the other things, make sure it's fun to play. Like I could probably write lists that are maybe more tournament effective. It could even be a weird list that doesn't have an affiliation or something. But I think ultimately you got to like enjoy the theme of what you're playing and the models you're playing, and there has to be some sort of like dynamic stuff happening that you enjoy. Whatever your play style you like, you got to play that, I think, ultimately. And then the last thing is just have some answers to like problem things. Will mentioned Hulk earlier, Ultron with Age of Ultron, Venom. For me, I think the answer to a lot of that stuff is the Trip Up Tactics card. I seem to reach for that more than anything else. But there's starting to become like these little mini metas where you if you don't bring an answer to like a Modoc or a Hulk or one of those big scary pieces, especially at like 15 points, you can really suffer and lose a game over it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I liked what you said about making sure that your list is fun and being able to enjoy it, because I think as we have more characters that are kind of more about stopping your opponent from having fun, with Loki and his canceling abilities and MODOK and his canceling wilds ability, that even though they're maybe just like the most competitively viable, that it's still important to enjoy the hobby at the end of the day.
No doubt. You got to have fun with it. And I think Atomic Mass Games as a company has really been like pushing that narrative of have fun, make this fun, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe your fun is actually making your opponent miserable, and in which case you just play Venom and Loki and all that stuff, right?
Some people do get down with that. And you know what?
Yeah,
I'm on
yeah,
board.
yeah.
Yeah, that is totally an option. Will, what about you? What are the three things that you're keeping in mind when you built your roster?
So the three things for me are first, and I guess this is probably in no specific order. I'm just going to go through how I have it listed here. So first is mobility. I want to be able to get where I need to be and kind of be able to move around the board, move about the board, go get objectives, go sit on objectives quickly, potentially. And I know that like when you go back and you listen to my roster, for anyone out there taking notes, you look at it and you say, well, your roster doesn't seem super mobile. But I feel like with Black Panther, Black Widow, and Baron Zemo, no matter what configuration I have, whether it's Wakanda, Avengers, or Cabal, I can find a way to get at least two of those long movement models in my roster. So I want to have mobility. My next thing is flexibility. So again, like I said on my roster building segment there, I want to be able to deal with a Hulk in a 15-point gamma wave sweeps across the Midwest, right? Because that to me, like if somebody drops a Hulk into that, one, they have committed a lot of resources to that Hulk. So can I deal with it within the framework of what I bring? And I think, yes, I can with kind of a lot of different choices. And I like that. Like, Brian, you said that you're not a fan of particularly having to think too much. And that's awesome. Like, I am the king of not thinking much, let me tell you. Just ask my wife. But I actually like the kind of game within the game where it's like, okay, my opponent's roster looks like this. Okay, it's Avengers heavy. Okay, so I know what to expect. You know what I mean? And now I can kind of counter pick in a sense for that. And I really like that. So flexibility, number one. Well, not number one, but it's number two on the list, I guess.
It was number two. It's
It
all
was,
good.
yeah, So then my next thing is survivability. So again, I want characters that have some kind of defensive tech or are just in general a little hardier than some of the other ones. And I know you say, well, Hulk, you're missing Hulk. He's the hardiest of them all. Not really, in my humble opinion. Yes, he has the highest health pool in the game right now, but he's only rolling two defenses, and it's just, I feel like that it's easier to take him down than people think. And yeah, you might lose a model in the process, but I will take losing a three-threat whoever, a 2-threat Okoye or a 3-threat Zemo to take down a Hulk in the process. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with that sacrifice because I'm going to win at the numbers game in the end there. So survivability. And I also look at survivability when I think about my tactics cards as well. So like I said, I start every single roster with what's released right now. The first three cards I'm putting in, it doesn't matter what, is Brace for Impact. So stopping Hulk from throwing crap at me. Recalibration Matrix. So, hey, that amazing roll that you just did, or hey, that amazing whiff I just had, let's do that again, right? And then patch up, because if someone like Black Panther has some herbs on him and I need him to survive, well, I can patch him up a little bit. The next thing is Second Wind, right? So Second Wind, I don't think is a wonderful tactic card per se, but it costs 1 power for each ally that plays the card. And then characters that spent that power can remove the stun special condition and 1 health. So it allows your team to kind of heal up a little bit when they're in a bad spot. You know what I mean? And yeah, one health doesn't make that much of a difference, but sometimes it does. So survivability is my last main point.
I like it, man. And it's so interesting to hear your guys' thoughts because in my mind they were both very different, and mine is even different still. The first thing that I always come to and look at is what affiliation do I want to make sure I have access to. So obviously in this one, the Avengers is my big thing, and then I look at what character jobs there are. And so I'm seeing things like Okoye and Captain America are like, okay, these guys have bodyguard. Venom has a bodyguard-esque ability. And so I want to make sure I can have, if I have fragile characters, that I have these kind of bodyguard characters to back them up. And then there's characters like Killmonger and Captain Marvel who just love to deal damage. And so I want to make sure I have a heavy hitter to deal with a Hulk or a MODOK if somebody else brings one of those to the table. And the final thing, and I guess this is somewhat similar, that I want to make sure I have in this three-step process is that I'm able to build good uh, teams at every threat level that we currently have. And this is about to expand a little bit with the 18 pointer coming with Thor and Valkyrie later this month. But I want to make sure that at every point I'm able to have, okay, cool. If it's 15, do I have an affiliation and does it look like a good balanced team?
That sounds nice. Yeah, I mean, balance. It is yin and yang, right? It's the way of life.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
threat level thing is a really good point because it's one of the things that makes um, sort of my approach to the roster building, where I'm like, I'm going to force this kind of one list, and then whatever's left is going to be able to make a different list. It actually got really tricky for me to make sure I could hit the 15, the 17, the 20 cleanly. And I actually, if I remember right, I think it was Avengers. I couldn't put Venom in the list and hit 20. Like it broke the math on it a little bit. So there's definitely something there with that. And you could really uh, dive pretty deep on like planning out like how many actual lists can this roster make,
Mm-hmm.
and it just depends on how deep you want to go. It sounds like Will is basically he wants to have like maximum flexibility and just beat people before the game starts, which I think is a really good approach if you can do it. I know that's not my particular strength, so I kind of build away from that, but it's really interesting ideas from both of you guys that are definitely different than mine.
Yeah, no, I love hearing you guys talk about this because there's so many different ways to play this game, and I'm learning stuff right now. So when we meet at a tournament one day, you're going down.
Oh, I take your challenge and I throw it in the trash because I'm not even worried about it. But for question number two, and I'm going to go straight back to you for this one, Will, because you are about this flexibility.
Boop, boop.
Uh, my second question is how many affiliations can you put into your team without making sacrifices to the team's versatility as a whole, and why?
Well, I think you can get 3, and that's pretty much it because that's all that's available. So I obviously think you can get 3. I when the Asgardians drop, I don't think it's possible to get 4, but someone out there could surprise me. So, anyways, I think it's 3, and I think that there are sacrifices that you end up having to make to put them all in there, but I don't feel like that it's sacrificed in the negative. It's not like I'm sacrificing Hulk, I'm sacrificing Killmonger, both good damage dealers, but also I feel like those pieces are so one trick pony ish in a lot of ways. Like I like Killmonger. I wanted Killmonger in my roster, but when I got to really looking at it, I was like, if Killmonger's not out there putting out the hurt, then what's the point? And I don't necessarily want to play to do damage all the time. I want to play objective. My goal is to get 16 victory points. I don't want to have a strategy where I have to pivot in the middle of it unless I'm just totally down, where I have to pivot in the middle and just go to takeout game. That's the game is played to 16 points. So I want to do the best I can to get those 16 points. And for me, Killmonger being such a damage, let's just kill things model, it just didn't work for me. So I think I can viably make all of them work. And to Brian's point, when you look at the different threat values out there and saying, what can I make work with 15, 17, 20? I look at it like I can make that work with all of them. and I built it in such a way as to where I can. And I did I tried to do the math on it. The only one that I would be weak, quote unquote, in would be if I went Cabal, and that's simply because on a Wakandan Herbs or Gamma Wave, which 15 threat, then I could go 14 threat because I have Modoc, Zemo, and Red Skull, and that equals out to 12. So I could go to 14 threat by putting an Okoye or a Black Widow in there, or and I could also put Shuri in there. And I don't feel like Shuri is so much of a downgrade over like a Killmonger type, like because I feel like she's still super viable in a Cabal list. You know what I mean? Because of her denial abilities, and then her Panther gauntlets only doing 1 damage, sure, but it's a pretty reliable damage rolling 6 dice, so she's still going to get that power back and then be able to feed the team with upgrades. So I don't know. I feel like it's super viable to be able to get all 3, but I also understand probably what you guys are going to talk about is the more narrow focused thing. And so yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously from the roster you've built, and you've shown that you have the flexibility for the full 3. Brian, are you gonna tell Will why he's wrong real quick, or?
No, definitely not. I'm not proclaiming to be an expert on any of this, but but I would say that I think what makes Will's approach work is actually besides everything he listed out, which all makes sense to me. The core 3 Wakandan characters are crazy strong in basically any list. Like Black Panther is a slam dunk in Avengers.
Absolutely.
Shuri is, at least in my metas, my group of friends who play a lot, in our eyes, she might be the best model in the game right now. She's that good. Best model, for her threat, obviously. So, and then Okoye is easy to fit in at 2 points, and Bodyguard's great, and she's actually really a solid 2-pointer. So you can put those in kind of wherever, or just play Wakanda. Whereas once you put Killmonger in there, you've now pushed your roster to Wakanda a lot. He's hard to get in elsewhere. I don't know if he really honestly fits with Cabal as much as some of the other stuff. So, but those 3 core ones plus the other stuff you got in that, you easily could go to those 3. And I think it's the design of Wakanda that kind of lets that happen right now, which is really cool. I mean, it's cool that you can basically play 3 totally different lists out of a 10 character roster.
Thank you.
As far as mine, you're welcome. As far as mine, I theoretically could do the same, not as well. Like my Wakanda stuff is not as I don't have as many Wakanda characters, but I think it's probably 2 ultimately. And I think as the game progresses, it's most of the time going to be 2, with the occasional exception of 3, which I think is the world we're in now. I think the roster you're playing, Will, is viable and will be viable, continue to be viable as the game moves on. So that particular one I think would work. But before I heard yours, I thought it was probably most of the time 2, because not just because of the amount of characters you can get in there and the difficulty building lists where you have enough to meet the more than 50% requirements, but also your 8 tactic card pool, you start having to put like Wakanda specific cards in there, or Venom specific cards in there, or that kind of thing. So like with my list, I actually have my sort of versatility is limited because I put so many of those kind of list specific cards in. But ultimately, yeah, I think it's 2 right now, and with 3, I'm not sure I could play that list, to be honest with you. But somebody who can play that list would probably crush, because they're just going to be able to. Speaking of Will's list again, they're going to be able to adapt better.
Man, my ego is just getting stroked all over the place. I love it.
Well, let me put it down real quick.
Of course.
First off, I go for 17 points, so that's why I'm not worried about you in a tournament. I'm just going to score that 1 point over, and it just won't even matter. But I agree more with Brian.
Point.
I think
yeah.
I think 2 is a good maximum, and it's not because of the character selection and the characters you're going to be losing out on, but I think it's the dedication of a team tactic card for each of those affiliations. So if you were running a Wakanda Forever, a Second Wind, and a Cosmic Invigoration, it kind of locks in your other 4 team tactic cards to always being brought. And while there's cards that are pretty universally good, for me, I'm a huge fan of the Patch Up and Trip Up. Brace for Impact is obviously fantastic, especially as we get more characters that can hurl size 4 things around
Mm-hmm.
and enough size 3 things. Brace for Impact is pretty universally good. But I think that's where it hurts more to cut some of those team tactic cards. And I think that it'll continue to be too, especially because we have so many splashable affiliations coming out for these smaller teams like Wakanda, like Asgard, where they are parts of multiple teams as it is. So you have Thor, who is both an Asgardian and an Avenger, and you have Loki, who is both a member of the Cabal and an Asgardian. So you'll have a little bit more versatility there. But otherwise, I think that's really where the sacrifice comes in, as Brian kind of pointed out there toward the end, that it's the sacrificing of the team tactic card slots that makes it a little bit more vulnerable.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Actually, I mean, that is probably where I would be the weakest, as it were, if you want to say it like that, is my team tactic card selection. But I feel like that I can drop second wind and I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Like I could drop second wind for a trip up. You know, I do have some
Mm.
tactic cards that I view as flex cards where, you know, depending on how I'm feeling in that moment and, you know, just trying to min max a little bit, I guess, is to say, okay, let me try this one over this one today. And like I put Wakanda Forever in there, and that is very specifically, obviously, if I run a Wakanda affiliation. But do I see myself running a Wakanda affiliation regularly? Probably not. But I want to have it in there because it's such a good card whenever I do end up running that. So it's kind of my thought on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it
and
makes.
sorry,
Go ahead, Brian.
sorry, Nate.
Go ahead.
I'm at the table looking at it, and there's smoke coming out of my ears, trying to figure out what you're gonna play because of that. So, and that
Exactly.
that is there is power to that for sure. So even if you don't end up playing Wakanda, just having what looks like a Wakanda list sitting there with the corresponding tactics cards is a problem for your opponent.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
Absolutely. And again, one thing that I didn't point out, but I think the other side of that is, I know you were kind of talking down on Killmonger, because at the end of the day, he is a damage dealer and nothing else. And if he's not doing that, he is not doing very well. But I feel like attached with him, Usurp the Throne is maybe the strongest team tactic card in the game right now, because it's the only one that can actually get you victory points, which I think is largely understated, especially when you can, if it's lined up correctly and stuff like that.
But that's it
But
right there. That what you just said is why I think why I don't include it. Like I actually love Killmonger as a model. Like yes, he is one trick pony. He's very focused, built model, and I love that aspect of it. But when when you say Usurp the Throne is such a great card, it is 2 victory points. I mean that's huge. It is, but you've got to have it set up perfectly. And then in a dice game, when you're telling me that, oh, I've done everything I can to make this thing happen, and then boom, the dice happen, and those 2 victory points go out the wind, out to pasture because I whiffed on a roll. Like that's not something I'm willing to play with. It's just something I don't want to mess with in my game. I'd rather go for something a little more consistent.
totally fair. I understand it.
I'm telling you why
And
you're wrong,
for,
Nate.
for
This is the
tell me
internet.
why you're wrong,
This is the
or
internet.
why.
You're supposed to get mad.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it boils down to playstyle, right?
Exactly.
So
100%.
um, I've always been a little bit of like sort of a passive attrition player, and I used to get real sweaty thinking about the players who were a little more loose and aggressive and kind of alpha strikey. And in all tournament games, you know, I played a lot of minis games before MCP. The kind of player that brings Usurp the Throne, Killmonger, and then a big pile of cards to support that Usurp the Throne, like the is it Battle Lust, or the card that you get. You add your strength to your attack when you move, which is a perfect card for like a charge guy. They bring all the support, they bring the recalibration matrix, yada yada yada, and then all of a sudden you're looking at a Killmonger and you're like, if I give this dude enough power to trigger all this stuff, he's gonna usurp me, and now the VP math is slanted really badly out of my favor. A lot of the missions really keep the score close if you're sort of the game is close,
Oh yeah.
but that 2 point lead can just dump you a game, like, you know, when he kills your, you know, your cap or whatever on turn 2. I agree with you. It's not in a tournament. Like I tend to try to look for reliability, but there is a player who would do that, and that player is terrifying.
Yes, Nate, you're terrifying.
And it's really stressful to play against in that environment too. So it kind of depends. Like, do you want to be like a I'm asking you questions guy, or do you want to be like a I'm bringing answers guy? And I
Mm-hmm.
think the usurp the throne is I'm asking a question. Can you work around me killing a model, getting two VPs, and riding it to victory? Kind of plan.
Yeah, and if you want to talk strategy and tactics on that for just a second, here's what you do if you see all that on the other side of the table. You go get Killmonger.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, you just go
and
get him.
he's killable for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it becomes like
He
a
is
little game
very
within the game.
vulnerable.
Yep. Yeah, he is pretty soft. Yep, totally
Cool.
agree.
Well, I'm going to just keep trying to move it along here. For my third question, I have for you guys: what is the maximum number of team tactic cards that you would be willing to bring in a roster that require either an affiliation or a specific character? For me, it is three. That way, there is a little bit more flexibility in the additional cards that I can bring. Four would be the absolute maximum. Just that way, sure you'll always have one that lines up with your teams or your character that is in the affiliation. So four would be the max, but three is what I would aim for. Brian, what about you?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I took four in my example roster, which kind of created that situation where basically, my cabal list is just entirely writes itself without me having to actually make any decisions at all as far as the tactics cards. But assuming you don't want to play that way, and you want a little more flexibility, I think like two or three is probably the way to go. And that kind of lines up with that. Maybe you're playing two affiliations worth of tactical cards as well.
Will, what about for you, man?
For me, I think it's three. I think three is the sweet spot. But to Brian, I did the same thing he did. I took four. And I took four simply because I wanted three, one for each individual affiliation that I have, and then also Venom's card, because I do think that Lethal Protector is very good. Very
It's so
good.
good.
And
It's
like I
so
said,
good.
exactly. And like I said in my in terms of the things I think about when roster building, survivability. And Venom with Lethal Protector, it just creates such a survivable situation. And yeah, so for me, I think it's three is the sweet spot, but I did bring four just based on my roster construction.
Oh, I totally did four as well. I have the Avengers Assemble, the Cosmic Invigoration, Usurp the Throne, and the Lethal Protector because they're all fantastic. And after having kind of gone through, oh, what if I bring this list? Okay, I can bring these characters, and I fill out all five of my tactic card slots at the end of the day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And so my last question for you guys, and it was one I almost didn't even put in here, but now like it seems that this is right up Brian's alley. My question was, is it wrong to have characters and tactic cards devoted for a very specific crisis setup? And if so, why? And if not, what is that secret sauce for you to be able to unleash your secret sauce? And you've already told us a little bit, man. Brian, just go in a little bit further if you have any more to give.
Yeah, this is my time to shine, right? I brought the weird roster. Yeah, uh, assuming I'm correct about that roughly 50% math, you definitely can write a pick a specific crisis card and say I'm going to play this as much as I can and build around it. And maybe do it, do one out of the red deck and one out of the blue deck, which gives you even better chances of getting what you want. So, I think that works. I have not tested it a ton. Um, I did play a couple games of this roster and did force herbs and won with it, so that was cool. But I haven't played 10 games with it to confirm. Um, but yeah, I think one or two you definitely can do that. And there's other ones that are like kind of character specific. Like maybe you play. Um, is it the origin bombs that you need to have energy defense to disarm?
The
I'm trying to remember what.
origin bombs.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. It's energy
Uh,
defense.
yeah, deadly meteors mutate civilians. Yeah, so you could theoretically pack your roster with all the high energy defense characters to reliably score that one. Because boy, that is tricky when enemy models start standing on it. Trying to capture those with 2 or 3 energy defense is rough.
Yeah, it's a good one to go for Avengers with Captain Marvel and Captain America specifically.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah. Cool. Will, do you have any secret sauce, or is your list just so versatile that there's not enough space in it to kind of have that secret weapon?
Well, that's the thing. I think the secret sauce would be just the secret sauce is the flexibility and is the options that I am presented with. So, for instance, I personally, like Brian, I really favor Wakandan herbs because it's you can get the most victory points from it. So I really favor that. And with that, if I have the opportunity to pull from the extraction deck, that's the one I want. I want Wakandan herbs first and foremost because I want to win. Now, if I just want to have fun and go crazy, I want Spider Infected because crazy things happen with that one. So I like that one. But Wakandan herbs, then I can run an Avengers list, put Black Panther in there, and I'm feeling pretty good. You know what I mean? Like Black Panther would be my runner in that case. And I like that. And then you mentioned the origin bombs, the deadly meteors mutate civilians. I also love that as my secure objective because again, I can run an Avengers list if I want to and put in Black Panther. And Black Panther's got a lot of survivability, Captain Marvel and Captain America with the 4 energy defense. I love that. Now, if Gamma Wave gets pulled, I feel like Gamma Waves is the one where it's like damage city. You know what I mean? And so I use that as okay, I want to do some damage today. I want to have a good time just kicking the crap out of my opponent. And then I run my Cabal list or my Wakanda list and throw a Cabal character in there or a Venom in there. You know what I mean? So I think that
Yeah.
I just think that the secret sauce of my list is the flexibility, but I don't go into it just shooting from the hip. Like I do definitely have okay, if I get Wakandan herbs, what am I going to do? I'm probably going Avengers and putting Black Panther in there. Or if I get Infinity Formula goes missing, what am I going to do? I'm actually probably going to run Wakanda depending on what the extraction is because that extra power will fuel the leadership ability of Black Panther with those rerolls. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Having basically you have to have like a sub plan for each potential crisis card.
exactly.
And if you're experienced enough to do that, the flexibility is going to be king, no doubt. Yeah, and so if you've got a plan, if you have a kind of at least a core of a list in mind for each crisis you could potentially see, yeah, you're going to crush.
I love it. It's fun.
Yeah. So the last 3 characters that I have in my list, and I'll probably keep Modoc even after this February's releases, but Hulk, Red Skull, and Modoc are my secret sauce list. Whenever Gamma Waves gets pulled, and any extraction objective that only has one thing to hold, so whether that is the Wakandan herbs, a Kree power core, or the Scroll Infiltrator, I will set up a 15-point kill team that is, because those are all a little bit more low scoring games, I just bring the pain with Hulk, Red Skull, and Modoc. And I haven't got to test it too many times because those objectives do not get to line up just perfectly that often. But currently I'm 3-0 with the list under those situations. And just the 3 activations is a little bit more fun than I thought it would be.
That's a gnarly thought because for me, if you run something out there with if you run 3 models out there, yeah, they are 3 strong models. I 100% get that. But if you run 3 models out there, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I've got 5 models on the table because
Yeah,
being
that's
being
like
up,
You won't
counterplay,
know.
right? Yeah.
well,
Well,
valid
and then
point.
yeah, so it's like you look at their roster and you go, "Ooh, uh, this is gonna be Gamma Wave," and he's got Hulk Modoc. I wonder if he's gonna try this because I think that is a very potent small model count list for a scenario that you basically just run down the middle of the table of, right?
Yeah.
So your plan maybe has to be like, well, let's throw 5 spider infected down or 5 cosmic cube fragments down, or stuff that's like outside of the middle, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
Well,
and that's that like mini game at the beginning where you can really spin yourself in circles trying to counter what they might play. But yeah, that's a tough list to fight. Hulk in general in Gamma Wave is brutal, but Hulk Modoc is like,
Oh
ugh.
yeah, that's a kill list for sure.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a fun little thing that if everything gets set up just right, and it's something that I'm honestly going to have to drop here pretty soon because as we get more and more objectives, the likelihood of seeing that exact scenario pop up, even if it's extremely effective, at the end of the day, if you don't see it enough, it's not worth running. So I think once we get yet another extraction objective that has multiple ones spread across I'll probably have to retire the super squad.
Oh no, I don't want to see that, man. We got to get a game in before you do that.
Awesome, cool guys. Well, thank you for joining me. This was a blast, and just so glad to hear other people and these very diverse thoughts across the board on for everything from building rosters to the characters, the tactics, the whole nine yards. But first and foremost, Brian, where can people find you?
Oh yeah, so I have a YouTube channel. It's called Mini Fights with three exclamation points, and we just do voiced over kind of condensed MCP battle reports. And I think I've got 5 up now, and they're doing great, and I get a lot of good feedback on them. So yeah, come and watch them.
They're good stuff.
Awesome. They really are. And Will, where can people find you?
I am on this little podcast called House Party Protocol, and we just are like Nate said at the beginning, we're the Deadpool of podcasts. It's there's language, there's dirty words, so come prepared for that a little bit.
Talks
And
about his boom mic a lot.
yes, there's a boom mic situation. There's a cat that likes to go while I'm recording. It's crazy. I'm surprised it didn't happen during this, but that's neither here nor there. House Party Protocol, and you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Play, and apparently other places. Apparently there's like rando apps that just pull podcast feeds, so that too. So you can find us there. And yeah, we just talk about everything Crisis Protocol. Our big shtick probably is character breakdowns. We have a big segment devoted to that on every episode, and we have a bi-weekly episode. So every other Thursday we release a new episode for you guys.
Awesome. I will have links to all of your stuff down below. Thanks for joining me. And for everybody who listened, thanks for listening and keep on gaming.
Peace.
Yeah, thanks guys. It was super fun.